Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom nestled between rolling hills, sparkling rivers and fields of gold, there lived a proud king named Babar. Now, this king wasn't known for his wealth or his power or even his majestic throne. He could gallop like the wind and jump over castle walls in a single bound. This year, it was being held in the neighboring kingdom. "I shall win the great golden race," the king declared. "Oh, please help me," cried the turtle. "If you don't, I'll never make it out." "Please help me," whispered the deer. "I'm so thirsty, and there's no water anywhere." Again, the king chose to ignore them. They turned to see a young boy sitting alone beneath a nearby tree. "I'm lost and I can't find my way home," he cried. The king, however, was determined to reach the race course. "Sorry, little one, we can't help you," he said, urging Shadow to move faster. Please help me," the boy pleaded. But the king just kept going. The king and Shadow turned to see the turtle from earlier, smiling warmly. "You're here," whispered the king in surprise. "Indeed I am," replied the turtle, "and so is the deer and the young boy whom you met earlier today. They are all here because of your kindness." The king and Shadow felt a wave of realization wash over them. The king and Shadow had won, but what made the king the happiest was the sight of the turtle, the deer, and the young boy in the crowd waving and smiling. He used his wisdom and compassion to make his kingdom a better place for everyone, humans and animals alike. And Shadow, well, he never spoke again. But the king knew that sometimes the wisest lessons came from the most unexpected sources. He had won the race, yes, but he had also won their respect and admiration. "Oh, dear," whispered Shadow, understanding what he had done wrong. The king nodded slowly. "I am sorry for not helping those in need," he admitted. "It's all right," said the turtle. "We understand. Sometimes the smallest voices can teach us the greatest lessons, and a little kindness can go a long way. But now that you're here, we can help you. You're lost, right?" The king nodded again. "Well," said the deer, "I know a shortcut through these hills. It will lead you to a road that will take you to the race course." "Thank you," whispered the king, feeling ashamed. "Of course," said the young boy. "After all, kindness always comes back to you." "Hurry up," he urged Shadow impatiently. "I promise to treat everyone with kindness from now on," he vowed. The storm had cleared, leaving behind a sky full of sunshine and fluffy clouds. As they walked, the king noticed that Shadow seemed much happier. "What's wrong, old friend?" he asked. "Oh, nothing," replied Shadow with a smile. "I feel like we're going to have a wonderful day." "That's all we ask," replied the turtle. Excited, the king urged Shadow to run faster. "Look, we're almost there," he shouted. Shadow, however, stopped in his tracks. "Your Majesty," he said seriously, "I believe you should listen to me for once." The king, taken aback by Shadow's sudden seriousness, nodded slowly. "All right, Shadow, I'm listening," he said softly. Shadow smiled, and with a flick of his tail, he started running. He ran like the wind, faster than he had ever run before. The king, holding on tight to Shadow's mane, screamed with joy and laughter. "Yes, this is living," he shouted, feeling the wind in his hair and the ground flying beneath them. "And now let's get you to the race course." He knew deep down that treating others with compassion was the right thing to do. The king, however, ignored the turtle's pleas. "We don't have time to waste. Let's go," he urged, urging Shadow forward. The sky boomed with thunder, lightning flashed, and the strong winds threatened to knock them off their feet. "Oh, dear," whispered Shadow, realizing they might get lost. The king, however, remained determined. The light led them to a small, dry cave hidden among the rocks. Feeling grateful, the king and Shadow stepped inside to take shelter from the storm. "We must keep moving," he shouted over the sound of the wind. "Don't worry, Shadow. Your speed will guide us." Shadow snorted inwardly. wishing his king would show some compassion. I will ride into glory and everyone will sing my praises. He started practicing every day, shouting at the top of his lungs. Oh, dear, whispered Shadow, hoping they'd find shelter soon. The king, however, refused to admit they were lost. Don't be silly, he shouted. We're almost there. But they both knew that wasn't true. Faster, Shadow, fly like the wind. We have to be the fastest. And Shadow, well, he obeyed. But he couldn't help but sigh inwardly each time the king yelled. Oh, dear, the king rides, but he never listens. King Babar would always boast, I don't need any knights to protect me. I have Shadow, with him by my side. Who could possibly defeat me? But what the king didn't know was that Shadow had a secret, a very big secret. He could actually talk. Yes, you heard that right. But Shadow only spoke when he absolutely had to. Most of the time, he would communicate with the king through whinnies, snorts, and gentle touches. Oh, no, his one true love was his horse, a shiny black stallion named Shadow. Now, Shadow was no ordinary horse. He was fast, oh, so fast. On their way, they had to cross a wild and dense forest, climb over rocky hills, and then pass through a whispering desert. As they traveled, they came across many interesting sights. At first, the king wanted to stop and admire them, but then he remembered the race and said, no time to spare. We must hurry if we wish to win. Shadow nodded obediently, though he wished his master would take a moment to appreciate the beauty around them. One day, King Babar decided he wanted to participate in the Great Golden Race, an annual event where kings from all around the land would gather and compete to see who had the fastest horse. So the day of the race arrived, and King Babar, along with Shadow, set off toward the neighboring kingdom. They soon spotted a poor turtle struggling to free itself from the sticky mud. A little further down the road, they saw a graceful deer standing beside a dry and cracked pond, its head hung low. Just when the king started to get annoyed, they heard a small voice calling out for help. Help! Please help me! Shadow sighed inwardly, disappointed in his king's lack of kindness. As night fell, they were caught in a terrible storm. But after hours of walking, they realized they had no idea where they were. Suddenly, a small light appeared in the distance. Look, whispered Shadow, feeling a surge of hope. Then suddenly, they heard a familiar voice. Hello, Your Majesty. And with that, the friends showed the king and Shadow the shortcut. Overjoyed, the king apologized again for his behavior. The next morning, after resting at the warm and cozy cave, King Babar and Shadow continued their journey. And indeed they did. After taking the shortcut shown to them by the wise forest creatures, they found themselves on a wide road that led directly to the race course. And when they crossed the finish line, they were greeted with cheers and applause. From that day on, King Babar became known throughout the land as the Listening King. And so they lived happily ever after. The end. Moral of the story: true listening is not just hearing words, but understanding the heart of the speaker.